After the election, the EU is moving to the right now, and in all probability, the Social Democratic Labour Party will soon be in power in Great Britain. But why things are different there than in other countries? British daily newspapers rarely report on events across the English Channel on the front page, but the results of the European elections, the shift to the right in Germany and the new elections in France were also prominently covered in the British media. Journalists have not failed to notice the remarkable situation in which the United Kingdom, whose citizens voted for Brexit in 2016 by a majority, currently finds itself. While the EU is moving further to the right, the centre-left Labour Party will in all probability come to power in Great Britain. And I said the question already, why is the situation across the English Channel developing differently than in other European countries? For Patrick Diamond, professor at Queen Mary University of London, the British two-party system is more than anything else an explanation for why a Social Democratic Prime Minister Keir Starmer could soon move into Downing Street number 10. In 1997, a Labour government was elected that was in power for 13 years. Then there was a Conservative government for 14 years, and now we will probably get a Labour government again. That is part of the pattern of British politics. That's what he told German media. The two-party system on the island is supported by the system of relative majority voting. The British only vote for one candidate in their constituency. Whoever receives the most votes enters the British Parliament. The remaining votes are all lost. Smaller parties in particular feel disadvantaged by the system. Others support it because it keeps extremist parties in check. That's the opinion of Sophie Stowers of the think tank UK in a Changing Europe. Overall, however, British society is also considered more tolerant than other nations. A commission of experts emphasized in 2021 that the country has developed into one of the most open societies in Europe over the past 50 years. This is reflected in the decreasing income differences between ethnic groups and the diversity in professional fields such as medicine and law. We just don't see this in the public. Right-wing populist parties like Reform UK have only a relatively small following. Many people find their views too extreme, says Diamond. And in polls, Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, which advocates, among other things, stricter control of migration, is currently at 17%. However, this does not mean that populist politicians have no influence. The British Independence Party UKIP, led by Farage at the time, received the most votes in the 2014 European elections. A result that prompted former Prime Minister David Cameron to hold a referendum on leaving the European Union. And in 2019, Farage founded the Brexit Party and since the beginning of June has led the protest party Reform UK, which now focuses on issues other than Brexit. He tells people exactly what they want to hear, says British journalist Sean O'Grady. While the Tory leadership appears pale, technocratic and alienated, he seems approachable. Instead of countering Reform UK with their own narrative, the Conservatives under Prime Ministers Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have moved further to the right. The problem, however, according to O'Grady, is that a serious governing party can never overtake Farage on the right. Shortly before the Labour Party's likely election victory in early July, there is little sign of real enthusiasm, though. Britons want change, and in the British electoral system, this almost inevitably comes from Labour. Unlike Farage, Labour leader Keir Starmer is holding back on making big promises. However, according to Diamond, the Labour Party has also moved further to the right in the past 5 years in order to attract more voters. Starmer wants to be more rigid than his controversial predecessor Jeremy Corbyn, especially on the issue of migration, and this trend may intensify. If other European countries pursue a more aggressive anti-immigration policy, the pressure on Labour to also take a tougher stance could increase, he says. The head of government had surprisingly called for new elections on July 4th. This means that they will not take place in the autumn, as had long been suspected, but in the early summer. The last possible date was January 28th in 2025. Sunak could have waited, but did not want to, even though the party has been around 20 percentage points behind the opposition Labour Party in the polls for months and still is. The question that moved Britain in the hours that followed was therefore, why now of all times? And according to Tim Bale, he's a political scientist at Queen Mary University of London, Sunak used the element of surprise on the one hand, because there is not much time left until the ballot box. British media have started the countdown there in days, minutes and seconds. And there were, when they started, only very few days until the British can cast their vote. One day later, on July 5th, it will be clear who the new Prime Minister will be. Sunak is taking the initiative, and it's possible that some voters admire him for taking a risk, is what Bale told German media at the time. But so far it didn't pay out. From Sunak's point of view, the timing is also good because he can say that the economy has reached a turning point, as experts say. As was announced recently, Britain is no longer in recession and inflation is statistically at a normal level, although the economy is not doing well this week that much. Sunak once promised to calm the nervous markets after the trials and tribulations of his predecessor Liz Truss and to put the country on the path to a sustainable budget. And Sunak has kinda kept his promise. For quite a few Conservative MPs, however, the decision for July 4th was a shock. Many had hoped for a later date in the autumn to consider whether they wanted to run again and to be able to prepare for an election campaign if necessary, as Stephanie Luke of the think tank UK in a Changing Europe emphasized. Apparently some Tories now wanted to prevent the vote in July by ousting Sunak, but that did not happen because the potential damage to the whole party image that's big enough would be even greater. But can Sunak really turn things around in just these few weeks? Well, there are a lot of doubts. Many voters are convinced that the Tories have failed in too many important areas in recent years, be it in economic policy, the NHS or immigration control. But above all, people are annoyed by the years of internal psychodrama, as the British journalist Zoe Grunewald said. In politics, there's no such thing as 100% certainty, but if Sunak achieves a victory or even a draw against the Labour Party, he will have performed a kind of a miracle. The Labour Party, in any case, reacted euphorically to the announcement when Sunak made it, having long pushed for new elections. Now they want to stand for change above all else, so their election slogan aptly consists of one word, and that's change. It promises to end the chaos, and their main points of attack are the crisis in the healthcare system and the mess the Tories have caused in the economy. They also portray Sunak as a weak party leader who leads a divided party. This is not a new strategy, but it could prove effective. With the early election, Sunak is also meeting the wishes of the citizens. According to a survey by the opinion research institute BMG Research, it's more than a month ago now, almost half of British voters were in favor of an earlier vote. After all, many people want the Conservative Party to disappear from government as quickly as possible. Well, in any case, that is the most likely scenario. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.